Hey, good evening. Welcome to Reloved Guitars workshop. I'm Sam. This is where we take unloved budget guitars and do some work on them and set them up and turn them into decent quality guitars without spending much more money on them. That's because you don't have to. Basic components are all there, they're just universally badly set up. So, a couple of intros this week. I'd like you to say hello to the vintage V300 acoustic guitar. This guitar apparently was voted best guitar under £1,000. Now, I don't know who voted it that, and there's some people who think it's a pile of junk and some people who think it's the best thing on earth. Well, I got it at a reasonably good price, and I've been wanting to try out one of these for ages. And it's a very nice, quite a nice, I don't know what the word is. It's not exactly dreadnoughty. Maybe it is dreadnought, but anyway, it's a handsome looking guitar, nicely shaped, quite reasonably shallow, very light, in good condition. This one, there's a couple of little scuffs here and there, but nothing broken, nothing major. Yeah, so kind of everything you'd expect, made by Vintage, decent quality tuners, nothing surprising, nicely bound rosewood fretboard. Yeah, just quite nice, quite nicely balanced. A little bit heavier on the neck than on the body, which is quite interesting. But interestingly, it's hard to play, quite dead sound. And the young chap, German chap, what's his name? I'm thinking Franklin, but it wasn't Franklin. I thought it was something like that. Anyway, a young German guy was selling it because he was leaving the country, going home, and he couldn't take it with him. So I could see at first glance that it was a really good one. This is a Gumtree purchase, by the way, and the guy kindly met me and yeah, picked it up. There's a couple of little blemishes, like one there that won't go away. But anyway, despite the fact that the action is way too high, the strings are slightly dead and the action down here at the nut is wrong. In fact, the nut's either come off and been put on sideways in the past. It's got a chip out of it. So first thing I'm going to do is take down this, probably do a frets on it as well, and also redo the nut. In fact, I might be putting a brass nut on this one, see how it sounds. But I'm convinced anyway that once I've done that, this will be a very nice guitar. It doesn't currently have a Strat button anywhere at this end, and I quite like putting a Strat button on, so I would probably put one on the underside of the heel here, whatever this bit's called, that bit, strengthening bit. But yeah, generally very nice guitar for not a lot of money. I'm sure there are probably better guitars for £999, so I'm not sure how it really gets the best guitar under £1,000. But anyway, I like it. I think it looks nice. I think it's going to sound great when I've done some setup work. But like all things, it's not set up beautifully. Introduce you to the other arrival this week, and this one is a keeper, no doubt. I can't see myself getting rid of this. Introduce you to a Antoria 335 copy, and it's called Rockstar, somewhere on there, under there, the Antoria Rockstar. And this is a very warm yellow, orangey red, sunburst looking contoured top thing, semi-acoustic with sort of, I don't know what these are, speed knobs, sort of, probably 80s style actually, and there's every reason to suggest or think this is an 80s guitar, made in Korea at the Samick factory. It's fitted currently with 10s, and what we've got under these artificial but pleasant looking covers here, we've got Seymour Duncans, I think, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember, I looked them up. Anyway, yeah, Seymour Duncan's, a couple of nice quality pickups, and they are noticeable. I've played a little bit with this, haven't really tried it out that much, but it's a nice feel to it. The action's a little bit higher than I would like, and probably the action over the first fret as well. But altogether, it's a nice semi-acoustic guitar, nice big solid, well-made looking thing. Looking down it now, there's a what looks like a crack, a hint of a crack in the binding there, but it hasn't actually gone anywhere else. It's not in the join. One or two little details, like the volume and tone on this side are both loose, which is going to require a bit of careful fiddling about under here, which is an absolute nightmare job, getting tools or fingers in through the F-holes. But having said that, it is a step up for me in the quality of the semi-acoustic. I really like the Antoria brand. I saw one years ago, or I knew somebody had one years ago in the 80s, actually late 70s, early 80s, and it was a superb guitar. It was set up better than anything that we as school kids had on the day. So I saw this come up, and I got this for $275, and what, it's not a great price on its own for a guitar like this. You can hunt around and probably get one of these for $175, maybe even. But what swayed it for me was I like the look of this particular one, but also the pickups themselves are nearly 100 quid's worth, and it came with a brand new box case, hard case, which I don't have for a semi-acoustic. So that's kind of kitted this out so I can go and take it to band practices and things like that. So I'm going to be spending some time over the weekend or over Christmas I should say, getting this thing to play the way I'd like it. And again, it may be that a brass nut might go in here. I'm going to experiment. But it is nice, and it's got a slightly wider than usual bridge, so there's quite a bit of intonation travel available for getting, if you need it to get that set. The tuners aren't anything special, they're kind of Grover copies, but actually there's nothing about them that's too great. And in fact, one of them, this one here, is incredibly stiff. I don't know the reason for that at all. There's nothing immediately I can tell. So when I take it all to bits, I'll have a good look at that one, see if there's any particular reason. It may be that I'll replace them, but I don't want to do that just yet, spend unnecessary money. I'd like to try it out first. And you know, even the pickups, these surrounds, which are clearly added afterwards, they don't really fit these cavities that are drilled, but all told it's still a nice package. And once I've taken it apart and cleaned it all up a bit and treated the frets on here, I think they are a little bit flattened, so I have to be very careful, make sure we've got enough room to do any fret levelling if it needs it. But I'm pretty confident that's going to be a superb playing guitar which I'll want to keep. So there you go, those are the two new ones for this week. And while we're at it, we're going to carry on in a moment with a guitar that in fact has already sold during the week, not with the greatest of pictures as it were on the YouTube, eBay listing, but nevertheless it's a Squier standard Stratocaster, and somebody who knows their guitars saw it and grabbed hold of it. So what I'm just doing with this now is going to get the action, complete setting the action. I've done the bridge action pretty much down here. I'm going to do the nut action, then the intonation, and the last thing of all will be to set the tremolo to the correct range of upwards and downwards movement. And then I think once indoors, a little bit more, a couple more spots of polishing, just get it as good as it can be, and then it'll be off in the post, probably arriving after Christmas. But okay. So I'm going to stop and restart. There's that funny moment where you're pressing the thing and the thing won't stop. And so it's like the newsreaders of old, where they used to think the cameras had cut, but then they knew they hadn't, and they'd carry on staring at them with a funny expression. Okay, so let's get a few things tweaked around here. Okie dokie. So we are into setting the action on this beautiful thing. I've set the action down here fine, and the tremolo block at the moment is tipped backwards in order to get in advance or in preparation for setting the tremolo a bit later on. So we won't worry about that. We'll just carry on doing the action. I'm going to use a I think I'm going to use a rubber block. So I'm off now for a while over Christmas, which is pretty cool. Got a good couple of weeks off, so it's going to allow me to not only catch up on the guitar front, but also you might notice doing a bit of changing around over here. A quick look. So a bit of just a bit of tidying up. Some of the wood's gone. Some spare wood's been put up there, out of the way. I'm just going to carry on doing some more consolidation, making space. Cardboard's gone under there. Workbench in the corner, just to yeah, give me a bit more room to work in. And I've even got sort of deadly efficient and put labels on things so I know where things are. And this is, by the way, velcroed to the top of the pillar drill with some suspension rubber underneath so that it wobbles up and down without falling off. Yeah, so today I rejigged the leaderboard of shame, the fret leaderboard of shame, and actually did everything smaller. And what I realised, or what I saw at the end of it, was that I'm pretty much, I think it's about 28 guitars listed on there. So there's a sort of full history, well, not full history, it's half of the ones I've done, I suppose. But it gives a nice spread of statistics showing you the as they came to me, the state of the guitars, and I think it's a fair statement. If you think of, there's 20, let's say it's 28 there for argument's sake. Of those 28, 24 of them from here to the end have 50 or more % of their frets uneven. So when I kind of speaking about this to people, I will say pretty much of the 60 odd guitars that I've done, the vast majority have 50 or more % of their frets uneven. And if you see there's 4 out of 28, then it's an eighth. I think that's about right, isn't it? Not very good at maths. But let's say, 7/8 of all the guitars that have come through here have more than 50% uneven frets. So that's pretty staggering. But I think one of the other things that strikes me is that whilst 7/8 of the guitars have more than 50%, the point being is 100% of guitars coming through here have some uneven frets. And I guess the other statistic, the other way of saying that, is that 0% of guitars coming through here come through with even level fretboards. Okay, so that's really the kind of important bit. There isn't a single percentage, not one out of 60 guitars has level frets, full stop. Anyway, so it's been an interesting little time. I had an unpleasant exchange with somebody. Well, I didn't really, it wasn't that unpleasant, but an exchange with somebody on Facebook. No, YouTube, on one of the videos that I put up on YouTube. And the person sort of kicked off basically to tell me that he thought cheap guitars, budget guitars or whatever I was talking about were these pigs. He called them pigs, and he said that I was putting lipstick on pigs. And then he kind of proceeded to tell me that they were rubbish material, rubbish tone woods and rubbish everything. And I pointed out to him that the video he was commenting on was the vintage Strat, and in fact vintage Strat, one of the things that stands out, or is notable about the vintage Strat, is the fact that it has a solid steel tremolo block for the strings to anchor into, unlike the stuff that you get in those oh so fabulous Stratocasters, Fender built things that tend to come with a really weedy, as you can see there, a thin, weedy looking, crumbly alloy block, okay, versus a guitar that he was telling me was absolutely shit, a pig with a fantastic solid steel block, twice the size and probably 3 times the weight of the one in this. But he wouldn't take that piece. He had no response to that, so he started being abusive, and I kind of flagged it and blocked it. And but I have to say, I felt unhappy about it. Not because I blocked it. I just hate the fact that people make it their business to come on somebody's YouTube channel and just be abusive for no good reason. And so I kind of thought about that long and hard during the week, and one of the things that I decided is that no matter what anyone might think, what I'm certainly going to do, if anyone's just rude, is I'm going to ditch their comments or shut them down or whatever it is, because I realised that the one thing I don't want in my life is rudeness and unkindness. I've just had enough of it. There's too much of it about, and it isn't at all necessary. And actually, I'm not prepared to have it. So if I have to go and moderate every single comment, don't mind people disagreeing, as anyone watching that thread would see. Quite happy to discuss the details, because I don't claim to know much, let alone everything. But the sad thing is a lot of people just aren't in that space at all. They're not there to share information or enlighten you in any way. They're there to basically, from a point of view that can only feel better if they make somebody else feel worse, which I've chosen in many aspects of life. I don't want that in my world, so I'm not gonna have it. What it did do as well, though, is it made me re-look at this argument about tone woods, and it struck me that what I did is I had a look around and about online. Not that I haven't done millions of times before, but I took a fresh look, and what was really interesting was to notice that how quickly any discussion about tone woods always, I mean bar none, without fail, degenerated into argument and then personal insult and abuse. Like things seem to do on YouTube. And I thought, given the sort of polarisation where, I guess both sides of the argument tend to end up calling each other morons and imbeciles and God knows what else, and then, racially abusing each other and threatening and personal ad hominem attacks or whatever they call it. It just struck me as quite amazing why something like that would fire off such, or create such a reaction. And the other thing that struck me as interesting too is that when I take the position that I don't think, when I say, in my view, limited though it is, I don't see how the wood of the guitar actually can have any role in colouring the sound, since the sound is made as a result of ferrous strings oscillating in a flux magnetic field, or whatever that is that the pickups produce. Then the idea that if the wood has any effect at all, it only has an effect insofar as it affects the way in which the strings vibrate. But I can't see how the wood colours the sound, which people like to believe it does. Now, I could be entirely wrong, I don't have a problem with that, but you can hear that I hold that view because I think there's an argument, scientific or electromagnetic, physical, you name it what you like, a rational argument that I could cite saying why I think that's the case. I don't just arrive at it because I decided one morning I don't like the idea that wood colours the tone. There's a reason for it. As I've always said on these videos, there's a reason. If I do something a certain way, there's a reason until I learn better. So is it with the tone woods argument. But what I noticed very quickly in just quickly reviewing these different fights about it online is that the tone wood believers seemed consistently unable to provide a credible I suppose hypothesis for how the wood colours the sound. They just they seem, when it comes to that argument, it just seems to default to a belief that it does, a very passionate belief that it does, and one that leads quickly to arguments and attacks. But I guess that I realised that was going to be the baseline for discussing it with anybody, and that is, I'm happy to be proved wrong. I'm happy for people to come and disagree with anything I say or do. It doesn't matter to me that much. But I do expect somebody to put forward a rational argument that makes some sort of sense about their position. Otherwise, we're in the realm of religion, and I don't go for religion at all. So that's, the world of irrationality doesn't really appeal to me that much. I'm definitely a rationalist. So if you do believe, or if you do have a hypothesis about why tone woods affect the sound that comes out of an electric guitar's pickups into the amp, how it sounds to the ears when it's amplified, please do set it out. Do the world of this argument a favour, but set it out in such a way that people can consider it, and don't just revert to insult when somebody sets out an argument as to why they don't think it is, because it just then dissolves into fundamentalism effectively, which is beliefs without any need or recourse to argument or logic, and it's just mad. So out of a difficult and not very pleasant exchange, I suppose some useful kind of research and thinking came out. But I have to say, I asked a couple of people, I think a couple of people who follow Reloved Guitars on Facebook, and one of them is an acoustics engineer who pretty much backed up the hypothesis that I've always held about it since I've started thinking about it, which pretty much says the wood cannot colour the tone of a signal produced by effectively electromagnetic equipment. And as I said, that doesn't still mean that it doesn't play some part in the way the guitar sounds, but if it does, somebody who believes it does have that part, you've got to be able to logically reason why and create an answer why. And if you can't, then it is just in the land of, well, you think it does. Okay, you're entitled to think it does, and you can go and buy one guitar and not another based on what you think. But and somebody can sell you one much more expensive guitar than another based on what you believe. And that's your business, not mine. But I do expect, for me anyway, in the circles that I operate in and anything I have anything to do with, fundamental respect to begin with. And that means I don't tolerate anybody scoring points, myself included, if I ever get that way, just to make somebody else feel bad so you can feel better. And the other thing is, if you have an argument or a view on something, then it needs to be supported by some logic or some evidence that makes sense of it. Otherwise it's just fundamentalist belief, and there's nothing we can discuss then. So I'll be getting much better with my delete and block button if that's the position you want to take. But I'd much rather that people shared what they did know so I can learn something. Okay, all of that aside, sorry about this. The guy who's bought this guitar, you didn't necessarily need to get all that in the first 10 minutes, but that's the way it goes. This is the beginning of my Christmas break, so I've got quite a bit of time to do this stuff. But I've sold this guitar and I want to get it dispatched on Monday as I promised, so here with the last couple of changes. Okay, so we've set the bridge action down there, and what I'm going to do now, I've set the neck relief as well, by the way, so that it's got enough curve in it to let the strings rotate properly. And now I'm going to aim to set the action of the strings over the first fret, which on these guitars pretty much works out at a consistent 0.3 of a millimetre, which I can pull up with my feeler gauge. And I can see, because I can play the note cleanly and there's still fresh air between the feeler gauge and this vibrating string, I can tell that the gap is way more than 0.3. So I've got some lowering I can do all round, and I can see the shadows too tell me it's another good way of knowing. So the first thing I do is I'm just going to slack off this, and I'm going to pull out my nut file and also this little device here, which I'm going to use to just slightly widen the hole. The nut files I'm using are supposed to be for the exact gauge of string that's on here, but true enough, they're almost a fraction out. So I'm going to. So the principle here is to do a little cut in the groove, tiny amount, and then measure again, check the gap again. So what I'm doing is I'm using a combination of these files, serrated files, which are custom built for this purpose, and these welding rod nozzle cleaners, which are not custom built for the purpose but can come in handy. Go back up to pitch, not to be accurate, just to have it under roughly the right tension so it sits in the right place. So loads of room still, but I can tell that it's slightly coming down already, so we're on the right track. And the secret here is to just do it enough and not too much. If you take it slowly, you'll get there in good order without taking down too much. If you do it too quickly, or even, for example, if you assume that each of these slots is going to cut at the same rate as the others, which they don't as you change through the thicknesses of file, then what you can get is caught out and go too far too quickly. If that happens on a white nut like this, you've got a bit of leeway because there is a cute little trick that you can do to refill the gap and carry on then cutting it down again. And that's basically, you just put, it's pretty much spot on, almost there. Actually no, it's still more to go. Yeah, if you cut too far, you just put some baking powder into this slot, fill it up pretty much as up to the top, and then you can drop a blob of ideally viscous as possible super glue onto that stuff, and it soaks up into the baking powder and fills the slot with a nice cement, and that is actually drillable, not drillable, wrong word, fileable, so you can then cut it back down to the right depth. So it's a bit of a get out of jail free card. Okay, so that's now starting to bite, or to choke off that note, so I know that I'm at my 0.3, and that's great. I'm going to stop there. Now for the next one, I'm going to just pull this one out of the way, and I'm just going to read the next one using the visual. I can see the shadow, I can see the distance between that and the thing. I'm going to stick with this one because it's the correct, now it's the correct one, and I'm just going to cut away and do the same. Again, the rates of cutting will change between each one, so what took a long time on the low E might suddenly be done in a couple of cuts on the next one. And so it's as boring and as repetitive as this, but this is, in my experience so far, this is the kind of magical bit, really. And you know, I know this will get me in the bad books of some people who swear by the big name guitars, but this is the part where even Gibson and anyone else expensive guitars goes wrong. I mean, in a sense, what they do is that they send the guitar out without this kind of attention to detail, which I think, for the money you pay, personally, I think it's scandalous. But that's you know, it's a consumer world. You know, if somebody wants to buy it, then the market kind of speaks, votes with its money, I suppose. But I think that, I mean, the actual fact is, when I tried out some Gibsons in a music shop. Tried out some Gibsons, brand new American Gibsons, in a music shop, and the height over the first fret on all of them was wrong, or it's too high, and it made it hard to play, harder than it needs to be, and it also made the intonation down here wrong as well. And I was sort of whinging about it to my brother, and he said, well, the point is, he said, Sam, it's not a £2,500 guitar. He said, it's a £2,600 guitar, because it just has to have a setup done, you know, and that's what a, I don't know, pro musician or a gigging musician will expect. And maybe that's the case. I don't know. I don't, not a professional musician, and I don't know. I don't go and buy £2,500 guitars. But, you know, maybe that's true. Maybe that's how they all expect to pay the extra £100 or £200, whatever, to get it set up the way they like it. However, it still strikes me as strange that that's the case. I did read the other day that Gibson have actually built an adjustable nut that you can raise or lower, so that you can effectively change the height of the first fret without going through all this rigmarole. And in a way that's great, but it's also an admission that there is a problem there in the first place, which, you know, it's kind of validating when you see the manufacturer finally invent something to get around it. But again, it's only available on guitars costing £2,500 or something, you know, so for anybody else, it's back to this technique here. That's what you're stuck with. And that's not so bad, because this takes time, but it isn't exactly rocket science. You just need a few tools, and you need to be careful. But you know, you can, I don't know. The issue for me is that if it's okay, if it's fair to say, look, all right, so I expect the big name guitars to have uneven frets, okay? Hey, they're just human. The manufacturers are like anyone else, same process as anyone else. So I expect them to have some, you know, 50% uneven frets like everything else. Fine. I expect them to have the settings, the slots on the nut wrong, and the action over the first fret to be a bit too high. Okay, fine. And I expect them to have the action down here set higher than it needs to be, because they have to overcome the uneven frets. Fine, okay. You know, anyone who's got £2,500 to spend can spend another £100 on a setup, right? Well, yeah, that may be the case, but then the thing is, if you're not getting that precision to begin with, and if you're getting the same 50+% of uneven frets as a crappy, quote unquote, you know, budget guitar like a Squier standard Strat, then the truth is, why are you buying something? What are you buying for your £2,500? Okay, so we know you're buying a name. You're buying apparently some nicer wood. Somebody who believes that the wood changes the sound coming out of the pickups will tell you you're buying wood. Okay, so I can believe you might be buying some prettier wood, because I absolutely see that some of the woods on those guitars look lovely and they're expensive, exotic woods. But as somebody else pointed out the other day, maybe you're just buying expensive wood because somebody's telling you expensive wood is what you need. I don't know. Anyway, so it does strike me that if those little details, that we call them little details, but actually when you get your hands on this guitar and feel how differently it plays from other guitars you might have played, then the issue here is that the things that we're talking about having done for your £2,500, the setting of this action, the setting of that, the levelling of the frets, are no longer small fiddly little details. They're massive. That's all there is to your guitar, and some pretty looking wood. I mean, you know, it's how this plays is the bit that matters. And if your £2,500 doesn't really take care of that, so then you're paying £2,500 for some quality pickups and some nice wood. That's basically it. Which, you know, this is a bit that I know will get flamed at. You know, is that really worth £2,000, £2,500? A name, some nice wood, and some couple £100 worth of pickups, and you're paying £2,500. But the bit that makes the guitar play, the levelness of the frets, the setting of the nut, and the action down there, and those details, isn't taken care of. Well, it doesn't seem right to me. But that's what people would say. The beauty of the market is that it will continue to pay if it believes the story, or, you know, if those are the priorities, then people will continue to buy them. But as you can tell, I'm a firm believer. Contrary to what that rather aggressive and unkind person was saying, I don't think these aren't pigs at all. And we're not putting lipstick on them, we're making them play the way they not only should, but absolutely certainly can play. And that's the fun part. You know, the idea that we maybe will kind of believe that actually it's inherent with cheaper guitars that they have to be shit and have an action that's just makes you want to give up learning the guitar. Well, it's not true. And people who see or come buy one of these and play one of these guitars, when the right combination of things have been done, see how different they are. I don't think it's putting lipstick on a pig. I think it's taking the blanket off it and realising that in fact it's a beautiful pony and letting it free. Anyway, I don't have to persuade you guys, because you're the ones who've watched this and decided this is what works for you. So, but I guess I'm mentioning it because it is interesting how vitriolic the argument becomes very quickly. And actually, one of the things that struck me is I started doing this about 8 months ago, having really just been an owner all my life and never really done anything to a guitar. And I think the thing is, I will say quite happily that I don't know much. Just, you know, I know only what I've found out along the way, or what I've tested out and tried out and tried something else. But you know what I'm noticing? What I'm noticing is that people out there with the strong views on this stuff about tone woods or about how to do something, the ones that shout and get abusive really quickly, actually I know it's obvious in a way, but it's what struck me, is that they don't know the answer. But the difference is they would never admit they don't know the answer, so they stick to a dogma about tone woods or about Gibson this or Fender that, or I don't know, you name it, ESP the other. And actually the reason they are so unkind and uncharitable to other people is because they have to stick to a dogma, because they don't really know. And that's why the people I've heard arguing this and being the most unkind don't ever explain. And I sort of ask them, you know, why don't you take the time to share your knowledge? It feels really good to do that, and you know, makes the world a better place. And I just think how good that would be if you helped me understand better. And they don't do it because either they couldn't bear to feel like that about helping someone. But actually, I think secretly the truth is they don't, because they can't. They just know, they believe that tone wood influences the sound of a guitar. But when they're called on, put the money where the mouth is, they wouldn't be able to tell you why. And yet they're the ones calling me ignorant or dumbass or whatever the stupid American expression is. Funny that, isn't it? So, I think the world is a better place when we learn things, and the best way to help people learn things is just to share what you know in a spirit of giving, not in a spirit of undermining and criticising and scoring points. Simple as that. The guy in question on the video comments, he made out that, or he showed quite clearly that his point of view about what I was doing was, to him, I was obviously bullshitting people so that I could rip off gullible eBay suckers who, and the way he described those people who would buy a guitar from me or listen to me, they were obviously mugs stupider than him. So in his kind of critique, it was to, he started off by assuming that I was doing something to rip people off for money. First of all, that he just assumed that was my intention, and secondly, he could hear in his words that everybody else was dumb and stupid and gullible. Of course, the corollary of that is, by implication, he isn't. He's bright and smart and knows it all. And that's the ego again, doing that thing of, you know, at every opportunity judging everyone else as being gullible and stupid, because all it does is it makes you feel superior for that little moment. It's just bizarre, really. And so much of that on YouTube, I really hate it. I hate the fact that it's so rampant everywhere. It's like Third World War will start in comments on YouTube. Of somebody with slightly juvenile emotional problems. Trying to make themselves feel better by hurting someone else. It's pretty tragic. Anyway, so enough of that. So we are coming round towards the last bit now. Just got one more to do. I could have gone a bit lower on all of these, but I'm holding back a little bit. Just want this, I'll stop a little bit short of my usual low action. Why am I saying that? Well, it's so fractionally short you wouldn't know the difference. But I have gone down to 0.25 many times, and some guitars that feels like almost no height at all, because it is really, I mean, it's 1/4 of a millimetre, which is pretty minuscule. I think one of the things that struck me when I first discovered, I suppose you could say how wrong the setting was on most guitars. The thing that struck me was just how massive a difference this tiny amount of distance makes. You know, so we're talking about a distance of ideally 1/3 of a millimetre, which is a phenomenally small distance to begin with. But oh, nice! Shit, that's a waste of a string. Doesn't usually happen. Bugger. Why did that do that? Oh well. Yeah, the kind of tiny difference that something that's the difference between 0.3 or 0.6 of a millimetre. So, you know, compared to anything else in the world, both those distances are minuscule. Statistically or in relation to each other, you know, it's obviously one is twice the distance of the other, which sounds a lot more significant. But they're still tiny distances. And have I got a spare 9 gauge in my collection up here? I may or I may not. Yeah, so what I learned was that the difference was tiny, but if that action down there is, let's say, 0.6 of a millimetre, that can create such major intonation problems compared to something at 0.3, which seems so tiny a difference, and yet it is enough to affect the guitar and, you know, the way it plays. And that's always been, it's a 10s, it's the wrong set. Yeah, that's always struck me as just incredible, the profound impact that such a tiny distance can have. And I think a lot of the time, partly it seems like why it's overlooked. There's this sort of feeling that if it's, I'm going to have to waste some strings here. That's annoying. I didn't want to do that. Yeah, there's a sort of, I suppose there's an instinct that says, look, it's so small. You know, they're all sitting on there okay. That must be right. Well, it isn't the case. 0.3 of a millimetre on a guitar like this, or any guitar, electric guitar that we've had coming through here, can make the difference between a guitar action that's hard to play and one that the notes are literally impossible to intonate properly, or suffer from intonation problems when you press the notes down here on open chords, or playing a melody, single note melody down here. So it's quite remarkable how much a difference it makes. And I think, to me, when I first started finding that out, it was a bit like a magical discovery, because I was like, no, it's not possible. This little distance can't be make all of this difference. You know, I think the first times I discovered it was when I changed them a tiny amount, and the guitar characteristic, the whole characteristic of the way the guitar played, just completely drastically transformed. And you're sort of left thinking, no, I don't believe it can make that much difference. This has now become a beautiful guitar to play, and 5 minutes ago, before I did that, it was just awful. So, yeah, that's my experience, that it really is that big a difference. And of course, having discovered it to be that big a difference, it also then feels like magic that you can do it for other people's guitars, or for guitars like these that you pick up on eBay or a friend's guitar or whatever. Or in the case of some of the customers I've had, you can take a guitar that somebody's paid several hundreds of pounds for from a big name. By the way, that's graphite. Yeah, you can take all manner of guitars, even something that somebody's paid a load of money to a big name for, and you can do a little bit of this work and transform it, and then somebody feels like they've either got their guitar back, or for the first time ever they've got the guitar they really wanted. And that's why it does feel like magic to me. That's why I like to do it. Okay, that's the graphite knocked off. So here we have the action now set. Ooh. And this string, of course, is going to be loose. Right, I'm going to leave that as it is, and I'm now going to do, I can't remember if we did the intonation. I've kind of lost a bit of memory. I don't think we would have done, since we haven't got to that stage, so it's probably unlikely. So I'm going to intonate, and then I'm going to do tremolo. So that's the setting there. It's cost me a bloody set of strings, typical. Hopefully I've got some more in the post, but that means I can't do any more electric guitars. Just keep getting caught without strings. Okay, so that's that, and we'll get on to the intonation. It should be fairly easy. And the intonation is a process of making sure that every single string is set to the correct length for this neck. Okay, so need that, and I'll need that small one. Moving things around. Yes, so setting the intonation is a matter of making sure each string is the correct length for the neck that's on the guitar. We're able to do that because we have the movable bridge saddles down here, and those bridge saddles we can move them backwards and forwards to achieve the right length, and we tell the correct length by set the correct length, or tell it by watching the way the pitch changes on the string. I'll show you how in a minute. Just get this fired up. Clean sound, treble tone, no effects. Okay, so we'll need a chromatic tuner for this. Don't see how well you can see this. Okay, there's my tuner. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think you can see all right. So we'll tune each string. tune, what we'll do is we're now going to stand by with a screwdriver, which will allow us to adjust these individually forwards or backwards. And so we ping a harmonic on the 12th fret. Go away. Then once we've got it tuned, then we hit fret the note at the 12th fret, and if the length of the string is exactly correct for this neck, then that pinged note and the fretted note should be exactly the same. What you can see is the ping note is, if anything, going slightly flat because it's still bedding in. But the fretted note is sharp. That means the string's too short, in which case we will turn this clockwise and drag back some length, drag back the saddle and try it again. Now this note will now go sharp because we've tightened it up on the saddle by dragging it back. Do we tune it again? Why is this? It's better. I usually do the best of a few because it's quite variable. Again, I'll turn it some more, bring it back. To look at that. Got a loose wire here. Close. Probably one more turn backwards. Okay. Now that tells me I can adjust the other ones in advance because I know roughly how they should sit in relation to each other. So if I've got the first one, then I can make some adjustments on the others. Sharp. Did I say sharp or was it flat? Sharp. So too short, bring it back a bit further. close. That one's too sharp. Throwing it back. It's not very scientific, but it does work. See, the point is, if you get to a place where you really can't tell the difference, it feels like it's right, then it is. For it to make much of a difference, it has to be quite significantly wrong, and you'll see it register very quickly on there if it is that wrong. If you're seeing just tiny differences like that, then it's on. Interesting, I don't quite know where that one wants to go. According to this, it's actually needs to go the other way, which doesn't sort of make an awful lot of sense, but Settled in. Okay, there we have it, intonated. Good. Right, next bit we'll whiz on to the setting of the tremolo, ladies and gentlemen. I'll do a little look under the bonnet a bit later on to see if we fit something in the lead here, or whether there's a switch, dusty, sticky switch. It's sounding nice anyway, pickup wise. Right, so this is a fairly simple operation. I'll switch glasses again. So what we're going to do for this, I have instructions courtesy of Mr. Galeazzo Frudoir. He says, tighten the tremolo down so it's sitting flat on the deck. It is. Okay, now we're going to put in however much post-it notes. I've actually, he's done this, I don't need to try and, I'm going to make sure this is plugged in actually. I don't need to try and teach you this, his method from start to finish, because you can go online and watch him do it much better than seeing me do it. So let me just plug this in. Okay. So what we do, so we have the back off, which currently we have because we are missing the tremolo plate, which somebody should be sending to me. So we get ourselves a decent screwdriver of the kind that's going to be the right size for screwing these babies up and down, which isn't one of those. But let's just make sure we get this first. No, it's not that one. It's a bit worn out, that these screws, I have to say. I don't think I've got any replacements, so okay, that'll do. So what we do is we tighten all of those in until the tremolo bar, the plate, is on the bottom, which it is, and then we get the tremolo arm, stick it in and wind it in, and then our job is to put as many bits of paper under here as are required to get the tremolo, the base of the tremolo level with the guitar body. So I'm just going to put my extra lighting on here because, believe it or not, I've got bugger all good vision on this side because there's a camera over there and other lights. Okay, oh yeah. Right, so I'm going to hoik this up, and I'm looking to get the thing perfectly. What's in the way over there? perfectly horizontal. So I'll put on a few more bits of paper, and when it's perfectly horizontal I will, oh, come on, I'll just push it under and leave it and say, right, that's horizontal. Okay, that's the first thing. Then what we do is we tune this G to pitch. I probably could have used, might have benefited from having it plugged in still, but we should be able to do it with this. It's not registering very well, come on. Okay, we'll call that a G. Okay, then we take out the post-its. Okay. And then this is interesting, then we put as many post-its under until G equals E again. It's currently at F. Take a few out. Couple more sheets out. It's not very easy to do without any electrical note. Getting it to F. F sharp. Going the wrong way, I think, aren't I? This isn't working without a bleeding amplifier. Sorry. Sometimes it does, but this time it doesn't. Which is absolutely annoying, because we just put it away. We have to tune this, we have to set the tremolo at a position when to make the G we had tuned now to E. What's this? Come on. Too little. One more. Close. Tune the whole guitar. Can we get one more under there? try one more. Try one more. It's supposed to be fine enough to make this work in tiny little stages. What's the difference between those two? Come on, manipulator. I'll stop at that. Okay, so I'm going to tune the whole guitar now. To tune the whole guitar. Look, so a bit of a jig was E, put the correct person in and until it's E. Now tune the whole guitar perfectly to pitch. So then take the post-it notes out, then we have to take this tremolo arm out as well, and we need to tune the guitar to pitch using the screws on the inside of the thingy. So, you can see the tuner still, we can. F. Let it out until it becomes an E. Pretty cool. So now what we've got nicely tuned thing, and you can get your tremolo in there. Now it's balanced and it's set up in such a way that it's actually sticking. So it's actually going in, or is it not biting at all? Have I got the wrong one? I think this went in previously. Come on. Just want to work with this. How weird. That's very peculiar. It did work before. It's a long one, short one. It's a long one with something else written on it. Is that more likely to fit on here? Well, bizarrely it is. I think it's a Sun Mustang one, but we may have to just give up the Sun Mustang for this at the moment. Okay, so what we've got is a floating trem, and we've got it so it pulls a tone and a half on the G, and then on the B a tone, and then on the E a semitone. Okay, sorry about the fiddly length of that one, but the job is done. And hey, where's Morris? This is noisy. Go away. Morris is behind me. Yeah, so took a while, but that one is now done. Action set. You can see actually that it's set now with a nice, what do you call it? It's pitched up correctly. It's got a nice playing action. We don't need to make any adjustments. The action there is good as far as I'm concerned. Action down here is nice and playable. Everything right. The amount of bend is set now using that method, which I didn't explain to you, but I will somewhere link to because it's a brilliant way. And Galeazzo Frudua, Mr. Blokey, Italian bloke who does it, is an absolute genius for having done it in a video which was so simple that I was able to copy it out in simple steps and know how to do it, to set this. So a little bit of cleaning up. On this guitar there was a tiny scratch or a bit of a scrape there, and I've just smoothed it down a bit on the plastic itself. But otherwise everything about this is great, and this is the Sun Mustang tremolo because this didn't come with a tremolo arm, but it's such a nice guitar and actually I think such a stable tremolo system on these standards that is worth putting a tremolo back onto it. So we've done that, and a tremolo that goes in both directions correctly, thanks to our mate Galeazzo. And just a nice overall guitar. Morris, what are you doing? Okay, I know what you're doing. It's coming around a long way. So yeah, Squier standard Stratocaster with Ernie Ball plectrum stuck to it. The back cover is supposed to be coming, so I will send a spare one just in case. If it doesn't arrive, I'll send it on to you, Mr. Owner. But meantime, got nice 0.3mm playing action over the first fret. Makes it really easy to play down here, and you've got a nice playing action at this end with the accurate tremolo built in as well, and a Sun Mustang, made by Fender anyway, tremolo arm to go with it, which is in good working order. So I'll give it a bit of a run through in the house, play it a little bit myself, but otherwise it's all ready to go. Thank you for sticking with me. I've been Sam here in the Reloved Guitars workshop. You've been watching bit of work on the Squier standard Stratocaster in the unusual circumstances that it's already sold before I finished it, which is great, because these things, by the way, these standard Strats are already now the most popular seller that I put out through this Reloved Guitars workshop, and I think it's because of the perfect combination of quality and potential, which takes a good setup to release. They've got a good sound, nice pickups. I don't buy the naysayers who say that the wood, because it's made of agathis, a Far Eastern hardwood, that for some reason that's just terrible and changes the tone of it. Until you can provide me with a mathematical explanation, or at least a credible scientific explanation that even reads like common sense, I can't buy into that stuff. Meanwhile, beautiful guitar to play, and I hope you enjoy it when you get it. Okay, Morris, we done? We done? Yes, let's do it.